Many people were shocked after watching the CCTV footage capturing the incident that took place on a crowded street. Even an elderly person, upon witnessing the event firsthand, was so terrified that they nearly fainted and had to be taken to the hospital immediately afterward. Not only was the method of the crime horrifying, but the perpetrator also carried out shocking actions after committing the crime, making this one of the most sensational cases of that time. In particular, many were surprised that the perpetrator turned out to be someone with a very high level of education and was widely admired. He was even nicknamed the King of National Taiwan University. However, what shocked the public even more was that the perpetrator committed the crime because of a dream. What exactly happened, and what was the motive behind the perpetrator's actions? Why did the court's verdict spark such a heated debate? Stay tuned because we will reveal all the truth right after this. But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the most fascinating videos. The scene at the crime site left many people astonished. In the early morning of September 22nd in Taipei, Taiwan, the number of pedestrians on a central street gradually increased. However, amidst the hustle and bustle, a crime occurred in front of many witnesses. At an intersection in the Songshan district, many people saw a young woman wearing a white t-shirt collapse to the ground with visible wounds. Next to her was a man wearing glasses and a black t-shirt, holding a sharp object in his hand. Then, people heard the man say to the woman, "Do you know that I love you with my entire life?" The lower part of the woman's body was injured. She lay on the ground, waiting for help from others. However, the incident happened so quickly that passers-by couldn't react in time. Some were even more terrified when they saw the man shift his target to himself afterward. What was particularly strange was that after committing the crime, the perpetrator did not attempt to flee the scene. Instead, he stood still, staring at the woman for a while before proceeding with another action involving himself. The screams of the passers-by increasingly attracted more attention. An elderly person had to be hospitalized after witnessing the man's actions firsthand. Additionally, 2 women nearly fainted upon seeing the scene. They were so terrified that they trembled and quickly called the police. Everyone at the scene wondered what had happened that led the man to commit such a cruel act. The CCTV footage collected was shocking. Upon receiving the report, the police and emergency personnel immediately arrived at the scene, which was at the back entrance of an elementary school. It was clear that the perpetrator showed no concern over whether children might witness his actions. When the man with glasses saw the police, he quickly carried out his planned action. He even expressed hope that he could be with his girlfriend. Noticing the man's unusual behavior, the police swiftly took the knife from his hand and restrained him. Shortly afterward, the medical staff at the scene placed the woman, who was lying on the ground, onto a stretcher and transported her to the hospital for emergency treatment. The man identified as the perpetrator was injured and was escorted by the police in a specialized vehicle to the hospital for treatment under supervision. On the way to the hospital, the perpetrator made faint sounds as if trying to say something, but due to his injuries, he could not speak clearly. A group of police officers remained at the scene, observing the surroundings and noticing several CCTV cameras installed in the area where the incident occurred. They proceeded to contact the homeowners and collected footage from those cameras. According to the testimonies of some witnesses present at the scene, before committing the crime, the man had raised his voice at the woman. It seemed like the two had been arguing about something. While inspecting the scene and taking witness statements, the police received news that the woman had not survived on the way to the hospital. According to the doctors, the victim had sustained severe injuries in multiple areas before being taken for emergency care. The forensic examination results showed that the victim had suffered injuries in critical areas. These details indicated that the perpetrator intended to carry out the crime to the end without any remorse. News of the murder that occurred right on the street quickly spread. In particular, even before the police officially released the perpetrator's identity, many people had already recognized him from a photo posted online. The reason why many people recognized the perpetrator was that he was a well-known figure with a high level of education and had even won awards in multiple competitions. So, who exactly was he? The relationship between the perpetrator and the victim. The perpetrator, Yanwen, 29 years old, was a former student at National Taiwan University and was one of the university's top students. After graduation, he pursued a master's degree and later worked for a prestigious accounting firm. Notably, during his university years, Yanwen led his faculty's team to victory in an ace sports competition and won first prize. Since then, he had been called the King of National Taiwan University and was considered a famous figure in the gaming community. At the accounting firm, his colleagues often referred to Yanwen as Master. They admired him for his intelligence and good looks. The victim in this case was Lin, born in 1992 in Taipei. She stood out among her classmates due to her fair complexion. Although Lin's academic scores were not exceptionally high, she had a deep love for children. After years of dedicated study toward her goal, she graduated from the Department of Early Childhood Education at National Taichung University of Education. After graduation, Lin was accepted as an intern teacher at a kindergarten affiliated with National Taiwan University. Her colleagues described Lin as a kind, well-mannered, and thoughtful person. Coming from a single-mother household, she appeared strong on the outside but had a sensitive soul. Lin often wrote down her thoughts in a weekly journal and shared her stories with her mother. In November 2013, Lin and Yanwen decided to meet in person after chatting online for some time. Upon seeing each other face to face, they quickly developed feelings and decided to date. In Lin's eyes, Yanwen was a handsome, cheerful, and humorous man. Furthermore, his stable job at a renowned accounting firm made her even more hopeful for a happy future. Over time, their relationship deepened, and eventually, Yanwen and Lin decided to live together. This happened about a year before the incident. However, sometime after moving in together, Lin discovered that her boyfriend was highly possessive, suspicious, and unpredictable. He frequently checked her call logs and used various methods to track her whereabouts. Before going to bed at night, Yanwen would ask Lin to hand over her phone for inspection. He would then proceed to check her apps and social media accounts, believing she might have betrayed him for another man. To confirm his suspicions, Yanwen also went through Lin's handbag and monitored her financial transactions. What was even more unsettling was that for a long time, Lin felt like she was being followed on her way to work and home. It was only later that she discovered that her own boyfriend was the one doing it. Due to Yanwen's suspicions, Lin often felt exhausted and even suffered from psychological pressure. If Yanwen noticed anything unusual about Lin, he would suspect her of cheating and then act inappropriately. However, after doing so, he would kneel down, cry, and beg for forgiveness. Lin repeatedly told her friends that she no longer wanted to endure the relationship with Yanwen. She even mentioned that her boyfriend once said he could do anything for her. The police suspected that there were irreconcilable conflicts in Yanwen and Lin's relationship. However, since the perpetrator still refused to testify, investigators contacted people close to both him and the victim. Contradictory statements. The perpetrator finally confessed. Lin's mother was devastated when she had to identify her daughter's body. She urged the police to quickly investigate and bring the perpetrator to justice. In front of the police, Lin's mother stated that her daughter had expressed a desire to end her relationship with Yanwen. However, the man persistently sought ways to approach and pressure her. A colleague revealed that one day, while she and Lin were on their way home from work, Yanwen suddenly appeared and loudly confronted his girlfriend. At that time, Lin told her colleague to leave first while she stayed behind to talk with Yanwen. It was unclear what they discussed, but the next morning, Lin went to work looking anxious. The police then questioned some of Lin's friends. They stated that Yanwen had physically harmed Lin during a trip to Japan. At that time, the couple had a major argument. According to Lin's account to her friends, during that trip, she gathered the courage to break up with Yanwen. However, in return, she suffered cruel actions from her boyfriend. After his inappropriate actions, Yanwen used his phone to take pictures and videos of Lin. He also forced her not to disclose the incident and forbade her from breaking up with him. Lin had no choice but to remain silent and comply with Yanwen's demands. However, after returning to Taiwan from Japan, she decided to avoid him. She ignored his calls and did not reply to his messages. Little did Lin know that Yanwen would use those photos to approach her at work when no one was around. Once again, he acted inappropriately. Despite suffering multiple times, Lin did not choose to escape to another city. Although she confided in her mother about her fears and struggles in the relationship with Yanwen, she did not go into too much detail. In particular, Lin told her friends that she believed Yanwen's threats were merely words spoken in anger. She was convinced that he would never actually do anything terrifying. However, in contrast to the testimonies of Lin's relatives and friends, Yanwen's friends had completely different revelations. One of Yanwen's friends told the police that he was a very devoted person. This friend even claimed that Yanwen had chosen to be forgiving in order to maintain his relationship with Lin. The friend revealed that in an effort to provide Lin with the best, Yanwen's savings had dwindled from 200,000 new Taiwan dollars to 150,000. Even when shopping with friends, Yanwen always chose the cheapest items for himself, while the gifts he bought for Lin were always expensive. According to this friend, despite Yanwen's efforts, Lin repeatedly said she wanted to break up because she no longer had feelings for him. The friend then mentioned what happened during Yanwen and Lin's trip to Japan. He claimed that Lin refused to hold hands or take photos with Yanwen, which worsened tensions in their relationship. Specifically, the friend also stated that although Lin said she wanted to break up, she still asked Yanwen to buy her health supplements. This led Yanwen to believe that there was still hope for reconciliation. Yanwen's friend said that while he did not condone his actions, it was clear that in his relationship with Lin, Yanwen was the one being taken advantage of. While the police were verifying the testimonies of Yanwen's friend and others, the perpetrator suddenly spoke up and admitted to his crime. It all started with pleading and begging. In front of the police, Yanwen confessed that when he realized Lin had decided to break up and cut off contact despite his pleas and threats, a terrifying idea formed in his mind. The first thing Yanwen wanted to do was not to release Lin's photos, but instead, he began harboring negative thoughts and considering extreme actions. At first, Yanwen thought about what he should do to fulfill his desire to be with his girlfriend forever. He started searching for related information online. After learning about a particular case, Yanwen began to develop more negative thoughts and started outlining his own plan. Yanwen went to a nearby supermarket to buy a sharp object. However, since the type he wanted was out of stock, he bought an alternative with similar material. After that, Yanwen returned home and went online to read a book. He spent the entire day thoroughly studying its contents. The incident began when Yanwen suddenly woke up from a dream. In that dream, Lin had truly abandoned him. Glancing at his phone, he saw that the time was 4:44 a.m., and he took it as a sign that the right moment had come. At around 6 a.m. on September 22nd, Yanwen stood at a street corner, waiting for Lin, because he knew she always passed by there every morning. When he saw his girlfriend from afar, Yanwen suddenly thought about changing his mind and wanted to salvage their relationship. He decided to approach her and talk in person. Lin was terrified by Yanwen's sudden appearance. She wanted to run, but her boyfriend firmly grabbed her hand. Lin looked at the man in front of her with a worried expression. She had once loved him, but now he was no longer the perfect boyfriend she had thought he was. Yanwen also expressed his desire to mend their relationship with Lin. However, she panicked and screamed, "Let go of my hand! I already told you I can't stand your love anymore." At this moment, Yanwen's rationality vanished due to his anger and despair. He screamed, pulled out the object he had purchased earlier, and committed the crime. With a loud scream, Lin fell to the ground. She had never imagined that the man she once loved could be so cruel. Lin desperately resisted and begged for mercy, but Yanwen did not stop his actions. In the end, Yanwen had completed half of his plan. However, he was arrested by the police before he could carry out the final part. With Yanwen's confession and the footage captured by CCTV, the perpetrator responsible for Lin's murder was officially prosecuted. The sentence was revised. On January 15, 2016, Yanwen's trial officially took place. In court, he exhibited an unusually calm demeanor when questioned by the prosecutor. Yanwen claimed that he acted out of anger because Lin had betrayed him. However, when the judge asked for evidence, he was unable to prove his claim to be true. Under Taiwanese law, murder cases can be handled differently depending on the motive and circumstances, with sentences ranging from 7 years in prison to the death penalty in cases of premeditation. Yanwen attempted to justify his actions by presenting a reasonable explanation, but ultimately, he was unsuccessful. However, the unexpected turn of events was that after many court sessions, the court sentenced Yanwen to only 15 years in prison and ordered him to compensate Lin's mother with 12,610,000 new Taiwan dollars. However, later on, Yanwen's family only gave Lin's mother a little over 1 million new Taiwan dollars, stating that the remaining amount would be paid over 67 years. How could an elderly woman possibly wait for 67 years? This verdict left many people dissatisfied. In particular, Lin's lawyer pointed out that Yanwen never missed an opportunity to blame the victim. He repeatedly insisted that his girlfriend had betrayed him, spent his money recklessly, and committed other actions. After the court sentenced Yanwen to only 15 years in prison, Lin's mother decided to appeal. She refused the compensation, instead demanding that the perpetrator receive a fitting punishment. Thanks to Lin's mother's relentless efforts and public pressure, Yanwen's case was retried. After several court sessions, the final verdict was that Yanwen was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Lin's mother accepted the verdict. She stated that after so much effort, she had finally secured justice for her daughter. In an interview with reporters after the final verdict was announced, Lin's mother revealed that at the time of her daughter's funeral, only Yanwen's older brother offered to cover the funeral expenses. It is known that at that time, Yanwen's older brother appeared at the funeral home at 8 o'clock in the evening, with a bouquet of flowers in his hands. He knelt down and cried, begging for forgiveness on behalf of his younger brother. However, Lin's mother and other relatives did not accept the apology. Eventually, a funeral home staff member approached and asked Yanwen's older brother to leave. The following day, access to the funeral home was restricted. Lin's family specifically instructed security personnel not to allow any member of Yanwen's family to enter. Lin's uncle was furious at Yanwen's actions and expressed his deep sorrow over his niece's passing. He also rejected the funeral expenses that Yanwen's family had offered to cover. Lin's mother recounted that, to bid her daughter farewell on her final journey, the family requested the funeral home to prepare a 2-story paper villa and a paper car, as the deceased had spent her entire life using a motorbike. Later, Lin's mother stated that she hoped with the life sentence without parole, Yanwen would have enough time to reflect on his actions and live in regret for the rest of his life. This is a case that has shocked Taiwanese media and public opinion for many years, and we wanted to share it with you. What do you think about this case? Leave a comment below. Thank you for listening to today's crime story. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated with more intriguing stories on our channel. See you in the next videos.